Hi everyone, it's Coach John Deming, aka JD. I made this video to be a supplement to the coaches and really help our kids try and learn some of the basic rules and fundamental situations of the game. I wish I'd have gotten this done a couple weeks ago. I've just been really slow about finishing it up. And here we are in the middle of the season already. But after practice last night and still going over some of the same basic scenarios and seeing that our kids are still having trouble picking them up, I thought it's never too late, and hopefully this could be helpful going forward, and even maybe next year we can just pass it down the league so others might find use for it. As we know, the game of baseball is quite complicated, and some of these players are just getting into the game, and even maybe this is their first season, and that's okay. I mean, they're 7, 8, 9-year-olds. It's not too late to start playing the game of baseball, and we as coaches owe it to them to teach them these things. And we can't take for granted that some of the players out there may not even know some of the basic rules of the game, like how many outs are there in an inning, how many strikes are there in an out, how many balls are there in a walk, etc. So these are some of the basic things that it would really help for the parents to go over with their kids as well prior to starting the season or getting out there on the field, so that they're not completely lost when the coaches start trying to teach some of these things. So I'm going to use this diagram and kind of illustrate some things out so that maybe the visual aid will help some of these concepts sink in. As coaches out there, if you're watching this, you know that this stuff takes up a lot of time to go over at practice. It's valuable to teach them, but so are those repetitions, hitting the ball and fielding the ball and throwing the ball. So this may be, I thought about this a little, like I said, too late this year, but this could be a big time saver. And especially, if you're a parent who knows some of these things and can learn along with your child, explain it to them, then they have this, basis of knowledge before they get out on the field, and we're teaching them, infield, outfield scenarios, and they're not completely lost. Out there on the field, there are just so many distractions, and it's very, very hard to get everyone's attention and to get them to really focus on this. So we're going to give this a try and see if it makes a difference. All right, let's get right into it. So the first thing we need to make sure that they understand is the difference between a force out and a tag out. Most kids know that a force out means you step on the base versus a tag out, which is where you tag the runner with the ball. However, the trick to it is knowing when to do which, and that's what we're going to go over with some of these scenarios. The easier of the two to understand is the tag out. Essentially, every kid is familiar with the game of tag, and if you tag the runner when he's not on the base, he is out. Now, I want to make sure you teach him good form or fundamentals when you tag him. Use two hands, not like this little cartoon picture here, so that you secure the ball and you don't actually accidentally tag them with the glove when the ball's in the bare hand, or vice versa. But the tag out is always an option. And sometimes that's the better option because you don't have to make a throw and risk an error. The other kind of out, the force out, is sometimes a little bit more difficult to understand because not every base has a force out all the time, right? So force out, as the name suggests, the base runner is forced to run to that base. So if you get the ball to that base and touch the base before the runner gets there, he is out. That's the simple way to explain a force out. So therein lies the key to understanding this, and the challenge as coaches for us to teach these kids when is there a force out. As I go through these, if you're a player watching this, think about it from both an infielder's standpoint and a base runner's standpoint. So what would you do if you're running the bases, not just what would you do if you're fielding the ball? First and foremost, which base always has a force out? First base, right? First base always has a force out. Why is that? Because the batter, as soon as he puts the ball in play, he is forced to run to first base. So you're always correct if you try and get the force out at first base. One of the infielders can either throw it over to the first baseman, or you can field it and run it over there yourself, step on the base. As long as you do it before the batter gets there, it's an out. And sometimes for some players, that's all we need to think about at this point. If you try and overcomplicate it, they will get too confused and they won't get an out anywhere. So I am never upset with a player who tries to get it out at first base, because there's always a force there, and at least they are thinking about that. When are there force outs at other base? Well, I'll use the blue to represent a base runner. All right, so there's a base runner on first base now. There's a hitter up to bat, obviously. So the hitter puts the ball in play somewhere. Now what has to happen here? The hitter has to run to first base, right? So that means this base runner has to run to second base, because there cannot be two base runners occupying the same base. So this guy is forced to run to second base, which means now there is a force out at second base as well as first base. Okay, so the infielders now have an option. Do I throw it to first base or do I throw it to second base? Now, having these options is a blessing and a curse. It's a blessing if the player knows which one is the easiest one and makes the right decision and gets the out. It's a curse when there's just so much going on in that player's mind, they get too confused, and A, B, and C are all correct options, and unfortunately they choose D, which is none of the above. So helping them understand which is the correct option is exactly the premise of this video. Let's take a look at another one now. I'm only going to put a runner on second base this time. So where's our force outs? We already know that there's a force out at first base. There's always a force out there because the batter has to run to first base. Does this base runner have to run to third base? The answer is no. Why? Because there is nobody on first base right now forcing him to go to third, okay? So if the ball gets hit, let's say he hits a ground ball on this side of the infield, what should this base runner do? Well, if he's smart, he's not going to take off running and allow the shortstop or third baseman, whoever fields the ball, to simply tag them. He can stay put at second base, giving the shortstop the only option of throwing it over to first base for the force out. Take a minute and make sure that this scenario makes sense before moving on. Now, that last scenario is kind of a good segue into the other side of things, and that is, what do you do as a base runner? We just laid out and discussed a couple of scenarios from a defensive standpoint. Now let's look at it more from a base running standpoint. All right, so let's go back here and put a base runner on first base. Now, we know the ball, when it gets put in play, the batter, of course, is forced to run to first base, meaning the runner on first base is forced to run to second base. So let's start with there's a ground ball that's hit. Now here's a concept that's really important to stress to these base runners. This ball, let's say it gets hit right around here and the second baseman goes to field it. You as a base runner need to hurry and beat that play at second base, because now you know there's a force out at second base, right? The other thing the fielder can do is he can field it and he can come up in front of you and just tag you, right? So try and get a good jump from the base when the ball is hit so that you get to second base as fast as possible and beat that out. If you are fast enough to get past that ground ball and the second baseman fields it and he's behind you now, his only option then is to throw to first base and you're safe at second. All right, so let's go back to that same scenario, and I'm going to throw yet another variable into the situation. So we've got our first base a runner on first. We've got our batter up. Batter puts the ball in play, except this time it's a pop-up. He hits it up in the air towards the second baseman again. Now, what do you as a base runner have to do in this scenario? Well, if you're the batter that just hit it, still you only have one option, that's to run to first. If you're the runner on first base, do you have to run to second? Well, we say yes earlier because the batter has to run and you can't have two base runners occupying first base at the same time. However, what happens if our second baseman, who's a good second baseman, he gets under the ball and he catches it in the air? That's an out, right? So as soon as this batter is out, because that ball is caught, now first base is open for you to stay at. Meaning, if there's a pop-up that's hit, you do not want to take off and just run to second base, because once he catches this, the second baseman catches it, now you have to get back to first base before the second baseman gets the ball to first base and the base is touched. If that happens, this batter is also out. That is called a double play. All right, let me clear this off and go over that again, because this is a very challenging concept for some players to learn, the double play situation. So we have a runner on first base and there's a pop-up that's hit. This base runner, what we need to teach them to do, and most of us as coaches and parents, we know this, is to get off a little bit and stop, okay? The base runner needs to watch what happens with this ball. If it's a pop-up, there's the dot, dot, dots equaling pop-up, okay? If it's a pop-up, one of two things is going to happen. Second baseman is going to go for this. He's either going to catch it or he's going to drop it. If he catches it, boom, hurry back to first base. Easy, okay? We've got an out there for the catch, but this base runner is not out. He's safe. Now, what if, let me go back to the blue here. Okay, so let's put that runner back on first base. Pop-up is hit. In the air, base runner is watching it happen. He gets off a little bit and he stops. Now this time the ball drops, okay, and it kind of bounces away here. Now at this point, this base runner must go to second base. He is forced now to go to second base because this batter, he's the one who has the right to first base, okay? So this takes practice for some of the players. You need to be patient with it. The base running scenarios can be very tricky because we always tell them, run hard. As soon as the ball is hit, you want to run hard, right? You want to beat that out at the next base. And a lot of times at this age, we don't expect most of the pop-ups to be caught. Some, yes, but not all of them. So you kind of get caught in the middle of, do I run or do I not run? Ideally, as a base runner, you want to get used to getting off the base, seeing where the ball is hit, and then knowing whether you need to run or get back. Now, of course, it's not just that easy. There's one more variable that I need to throw in here when it comes to the fly ball. All right, so let's put a runner on first again, and we'll throw a runner on second base too, why not? This time, however, there are two outs. So the runner or the batter hits a pop-up. Let's say it's going to the pitcher. What happens when there's two outs and the ball is hit in the air? That's right. I hope you got it. You just run, okay? Pop-up, ground ball, doesn't matter. With 2 outs, base runners just run. Why is that? Because there's 2 outs, and let's say this ball ends up getting caught by the pitcher. That's out number 3. Inning is over. You do not need to worry about him going back to second or going over to first and getting a double play, because 4 outs means nothing. So if there's 2 outs, the ball is hit in the air, that's the time when the base runners just need to run. Remember, there are base coaches, right? Third base coach, first base coach. We're out there telling you guys what to do, and we should be telling you before the play. Now, if the ball is hit, you're going to run hard because there's 2 outs, right? Right. But the idea is for you guys to learn these concepts so that when the actual game is going on, you can figure this out for yourself and you don't need to rely on the coaches to tell you everything. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here. I covered a few basic scenarios. Obviously, I can't cover everything. That's why baseball is such a complicated game and it can be very confusing. One thing I just want to say is that as parents, coaches, or teammates, we need to be very, very patient with these young kids. There's so much chaos going on during the game and so many people yelling so many different things at once that we need to find good opportunities to praise and encourage the players for showing signs that they're understanding these concepts, because it's a big deal to field the ball and throw it to the right base knowing that there's a force out there. Even if you make a bad throw and you don't get the out, rather than the player being feeling defeated because he didn't get the out, we should encourage him and praise him that he knew what to do. And next time, hopefully they'll make the better throw and they'll get the out. I really do hope that this has been beneficial, and I hope that the players can learn from it and other coaches can share this as well and use it as a good opportunity to develop our players. I really appreciate you watching if you made it this far.